back to these courses on Shaddarshanas. The 6 systems of philosophy in our country opened up the knowledge base to greater and greater depths. Starting with Nyaya, we dealt with Nyaya and Vaisheshika. Next we have the Sankhya, Yoga, Puramimamsa and Uttaramimamsa. In this course, we take up the Sankhya. And Sankhya was developed by the great Maharshi Kapila Muni. He is the founder of this Sankhya philosophy. Anthony Warder in 2009 investigated the possible historical origin and he puts it around 500 BC. And Kapila Muni wrote the essence of all this in Sankhya Karika, and it is dated around 200 or 350 to 450 I mentioned. And there is also the other texts of the Sankhya, and the renewed interest helped them to write this new dimension. What are the features of the Sankhya? According to Sankhya, there are 2 things, Purusa and the Prakruti. In a sense, the body and the soul. In another sense, matter and the spirit. And therefore, Sankhya is a dualistic philosophy. And this is where the spirit-matter dualism came into picture. And the subject matter deals with the birth, death and the salvation, the bondage and the release, the faults that lead to the bondage, the knowledge, the right knowledge that leads us to the release or the emancipation. Sankhya brings about the essential features of Purusa and Prakruti. What are the characteristics of Prakriti and the Purusa has been described in great detail. Purusa is pure consciousness. It is existence alone, whereas Prakriti is the one that is active. In a sense, the active phase, the manifested form, the kinetic form and the pure unchanging aspect. Purusa is the unchanging reality. It is all pervasive, it is eternal, unchanging. Whereas the Prakriti is the one that goes on changing and changing and changing. And Purusa is the knower and the Prakriti is the known in a sense. The knower is the subject and the known is the Prakriti. The knower is a silent witness and the known is the visible object, visible padarthas that we have. And the whole understanding of this right knowledge emerged from the 3 pramanas that the Sankhya uses. What are the 3 pramanas? Pratyaksha, Anumana and Shabda. And we had used Upamana in Nyaya, the 4 pramanas. In the Vaisheshika, only Pratyaksha and Anumana are used. Here the 3 things are added. That is the Shabda Pramana or the Agama Pramana. That is Aptavachana, word or testimony of the reliable sources. All that have been mentioned in the Vedas are accepted by the Sankhyas. Therefore, these are the 3 ways: direct perception, the inference and the textual or the Shabda Pramana. Based on this approach of getting at the right knowledge, the Sankhya evolved more and more. And the conclusion of the Sankhya was about the God. According to Sankhya, the existence of God or Supreme Being is not directly asserted nor considered relevant by the Sankhya philosophers. And it also denies the final cause of Ishvara. The final cause of the creation of this world by Ishvara is also not accepted in the Sankhya. What about universe? It is a combination of the Purusa and the Prakruti, entities infused with various permutations and combinations of variously enumerated elements, senses, feelings, activity and the mind. When the Purusa comes in touch with the Prakriti and goes on interacting and interacting with various aspects of the Prakriti, then this entire universe is formed. So that's the dimension. What about the Jiva, the individual being? The individual being is the state in which Purusa is bonded to Prakriti in some form. In the combination, Prakriti and Purusa join together and they form different individuals or the Jivas. The great contribution of the Sankhya is in the enunciation of the Gunas. And every Jiva, every individual is made up of three Gunas: the Tamas, the Rajas and the Sattva. Tamas is the grossest, Rajas is the middle, Sattva is the best. And each one have different permutations and combinations of that. Nobody is purely Sattvic or purely Rajasic or purely Tamasic. We all have all the three Gunas, but there could be different percentages of that. Fortunately today, in modern science and psychology, we have got the methods by which you can measure, and with a suitable inventory, called as the Vedic personality inventory, we will be able to tell how much of Rajas is there, how much Sattva is there, how much Tamas is there. Percentage. Maybe 40% Tamas, 40% Rajas, 20% Sattva. We can measure. That is the beauty of modern science, the modern psychology and the inventories that we have started developing compared to the ancient times. At that time we didn't have those measures. Therefore, the concept of the individual being is the combination of Prakriti with the Purusa, and that in various forms. Now, the idea of evolution in Sankhya revolves around the interaction of the Prakriti and the Purusa. Prakriti remains continuously unmanifested as long as the three Gunas are in equilibrium. When the three Gunas are in equilibrium, they are together, they are in a balance, they are samatva, then the Prakriti remains unmanifest. But once there is an imbalance, once the Rajas becomes more, a Sattva becomes more, a Tamas becomes more, they are not in an equilibrium, then we have the bondage that starts coming up in a big way. And the evolution obeys the causality relationship. The primal nature itself being the material cause of all this physical creation. It holds that nothing can really be created from or destroyed into nothingness. All evolution is simply the transformation of primal nature from one form to another. Just like in modern science, we say that the entire physical world is nothing but energy, and the energy is conserved, and energy cannot be destroyed or created. When a candle is burnt, nothing is lost, we say. A similar concept here also. So, the primal nature itself being the material cause of the whole physical creation. Nothing can be created from or destroyed from the other things. That is the evolution concept. The intellect is the first evolute of the Prakriti and is called as the Mahat, or the Great One. This causes the evolution of the ego sense or the self-consciousness. Intelligence is the one which has the freedom to go this way or go this way or go this way. Kartum, akartum, anitha kartum shaktaha, as it said. We all have that freedom, and that's called intelligence. If this doesn't work, okay, we'll try something else. That's the creative dimension human. It is this intelligence that makes the evolution possible, and it is the one that promotes either evolution or deterioration. We have got the freedom either to evolve ourselves and go to the highest heights of liberation, or we have the freedom to go and get more and more bound and go to the other end of the spectrum. Therefore, it is this intelligence called the Mahat, or the Great One, which is used. Evolution from self-consciousness is affected by the dominance of the Gunas. So, the dominance of a particular Guna, says dominance of Sattva, causes the evolution of the 5 organs of perception, 5 organs of action, and the mind. Therefore, it is the development of the Gunas, that is development of the Sattva, reduction of the Rajas, reduction of the Tamas, that makes the evolution to take us in the right direction. If on the other hand, Sattva reduces, Rajas increases, Tamas increases, we are in the other direction of the evolution, becoming slaves to ourselves. And that is the one that causes us all the bondage, and that deterioration is the root cause for all our suffering, for all our bondages, and for less and less of our capacities. So during the phase of imbalance, one or more constituents overwhelm the others, creating a form of bondage, particularly of the mind. Supposing tamas is more and rajas is more, it creates the bondage. And correspondingly, all the senses, the karmendriyas and the gnanendriyas, will bring an imbalance, creating a bondage to the mind. So therefore, these imbalances have to be corrected and see that it comes into an equilibrium. And therefore, in Sankhya, the method for liberation is the proper knowledge, and through which we must see that the balance takes place and the imbalances are removed. All the imbalances have to be removed. Imbalances in tamas, rajas and sattva, and correspondingly in the karmendriyas and the gnanendriyas and the mind, imbalances should go. And when this imbalances go, the end of imbalance, end of this bondage is called as liberation, and Sankhya calls it as the Kaivalya. Therefore, Sankhya gives a dualistic philosophy by which we have the Prakruti and the Purusa. And the Purusa is the ultimate, though it is not called as God, it is the ultimate reality, you can call. And the Prakruti, featured by the Gunas, it goes on changing and changing and changing and changing. It got the senses of understanding and the senses of actions. Mana, buddhi, ahankara, ego. And this is the gnanendriyas, and we have the karmendriyas. And gnanendriyas and karmendriyas are the ones that bring about the transformations, manifestations of the gunas. The gunas manifest through this, and corresponding our actions also go on changing. For example, if there is tamas predominance, there is laziness, lethargy, drowsiness, sleepiness, and resistance to action, resistance to thinking. That's the grossest form. And if it is rajas predominant, you are very sharp, intelligent, brilliant, dynamic, full of energy, you are a go-getter, and you are always working, full of energy, and that is the rajasic dimension. And in the sattva, you have all these rajasic explanations and exuberances and the capacities are there, but everything you do for the good of the people and less for me, more and more for others. The selfish, ambitious and egoistic actions of the rajas are replaced by the selfless actions of the sattva. Therefore, sattva is the best among the three gunas. So, by moving towards the sattva and bringing sattva predominance, the Sankhya says you start going in the right way. That is the process of evolution as it is put. And that is governed by our intelligence, the Mahat. And through our intelligence, we have the freedom to go in this right direction. If we don't use that intelligence, then we go the other way. We become more and more bound, more and more tamasic, and you deteriorate more and more. Anubandham, kshayam, himsam, anapekshaja paurusham are the things that happen in the tamasic dimension. And that is called as the bondage, that is the slavery, that reduces all our capacities and takes you down the drains. Therefore, the whole of the Sankhya helps us to go in the right direction, and it says it is the proper knowledge and use of the intelligence that we bring about this process of evolution. And the evolution can take place to bring about the transformation at the Jnanendriyas and the Karmendriyas and correspondingly the mind itself. And this is how the Sankhya gives us the direction as to how we can go further towards the ultimate reality. So the pramanas that are used here in Sankhya are the direct perception, pratyaksha, the inferential knowledge, that is the anumana, and the agama, that is the word, that is the Vedic thing. Therefore, all the three, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Puramimamsa, Uttarmimamsa, all believe in the supreme advocacy of the Vedas. And that's why they are called the Astika Darshanas. That means those philosophies who accept Vedas as the supreme. Today in modern science, for example, when we do the research, finally it comes as textbooks. And once it comes to the textbook, we all believe that this textbook has the right knowledge. For example, I study anatomy. And today Greece anatomy is a wonderful text. And we know that all that has been written in the Greece anatomy is real. Because this knowledge has been the summary of amount of research, large amount of research that have been done, they have been put forth and brought out the textbook. Not one simple research, but many researchers, and done in the multi-centric trials in various places by various people, repeated again and again. And once you get this inference, that comes as a textbook. Therefore, textbooks are the authorities in understanding the system. Similarly, the Vedas have been considered as the authorities of the knowledge. Therefore, all the Astika Shaddarshanas believe in the authority of the Vedas. That's called the Agama Pramana or the Shabda Pramana or the Pramana of the Vedas. Therefore, Sankhya also believes in this dimension and has its own way by which it brings about the needed things to come out of the Sukha, Dukkha, and the liberation has to take place. And the ultimate of that liberation is the total thing which is called as Kaivalya. Therefore, the Purusa and the Prakruti, which have come together to form the bondage, are liberated by the process of withdrawal. By the process of evolution from tamas to rajas, rajas to sattva, and going beyond the gunas, you reach the Purusha itself. And that is the process of liberation that has been talked about as the Kaivalya. Kaivalya is the ultimate liberation. So that gives you the whole dimension of the Sankhya and its differentiation compared to the Nyaya and the Vaisheshika. With this, now we will next pass on to the dimensions of yoga in our next course. And thank you very much.